Setbacks. They're not just inconveniences or temporary pauses. They are often life's greatest teachers. Every single one of us, at some point, will stumble, fail, or fall short. And while it's tempting to view these moments as defeats, the truth is that they are invitations, opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Think about it. The times when we learned the most about ourselves weren't when everything went smoothly, but when life didn't go as planned. Setbacks strip away our illusions of perfection, force us to confront our vulnerabilities, and open the door to transformation. We live in a culture that celebrates winning, achievement, and success stories, but often hides the messy truth of failure. Yet, it's in that messy middle where growth happens. Setbacks teach us humility. They remind us that courage is not about never failing. It's about rising again, even when it feels impossible. The way we respond to challenges defines us far more than the challenges themselves. Will we choose to stay stuck in disappointment? Or will we use the setback as a springboard for learning? When we give ourselves permission to fail, we also give ourselves permission to try again, this time with greater wisdom and strength. Remember, setbacks are not the opposite of progress. They are part of progress. Every fall carries within it the seed of growth, if we are willing to see it. So the next time life knocks you down, don't ask, "Why me?" Instead ask, "What can this teach me?" Because in every setback lies the hidden gift of growth. When we encounter a setback, our first instinct is often to interpret it as a punishment. We feel like the world has conspired against us, or that fate is reminding us of our limitations. This perspective, while natural, is deeply misleading. Setbacks are not punishments. They are teachers. They are life's way of revealing truths that success alone cannot teach us. A setback, though painful in the moment, carries within it the potential to reshape the way we see ourselves, our goals, and the world around us. When something doesn't go the way we planned, our emotions surge. Disappointment, frustration, sometimes shame. These feelings are valid. But if we pause for a moment, we begin to see that every setback has a lesson encoded in it. Perhaps it is teaching us patience when we want speed. Perhaps it is teaching us humility when we've grown too confident. Or perhaps it is teaching us persistence when quitting seems easier. In this way, setbacks are not arbitrary obstacles, but carefully hidden opportunities for growth. Imagine for a moment if everything you attempted in life succeeded instantly. If every plan unfolded perfectly and every effort bore fruit, you might think that would be ideal. But without friction, resistance, or challenge, we would never stretch beyond what we already know. Our skills would remain undeveloped, our resilience untested, and our perspective narrow. It is precisely the sting of failure that wakes us up, shakes us free from complacency, and forces us to ask hard questions. What went wrong? What could I have done differently? How can I become stronger because of this? These questions are the essence of learning. A setback is like a mirror that reflects back the areas we need to grow. When we miss a promotion, fail an exam, or lose an opportunity, we are given a mirror that shows us where our effort, strategy, or mindset may have fallen short. This reflection is not meant to diminish us, but to sharpen us. It pushes us to refine our methods, to strengthen our character, and to cultivate a deeper wisdom about how the world works. It is important to understand that setbacks are universal. No one is immune. Not the most talented, not the most disciplined, not the most privileged. Even the people we admire most have walked through seasons of failure. The difference between those who thrive and those who give up lies in how they interpret the experience. Those who see setbacks as punishments remain trapped in cycles of self-doubt and resentment. Those who see them as teachers open themselves to learning and transformation. For instance, consider how a child learns to walk. Every stumble, every fall is a setback. But the child does not interpret it as punishment. Instead, they instinctively treat it as part of the learning process. They get back up, adjust their balance, and try again. Eventually, the falls become less frequent and walking becomes natural. We, too, are meant to learn in this way. But as we grow older, we lose patience with ourselves. We label failure as defeat instead of recognizing it as practice. To reclaim this childlike resilience, we must shift our perspective. Every fall is a step toward mastery, every setback a lesson in progress. Setbacks also cultivate empathy. When we struggle, we gain a deeper understanding of others who are struggling. Success can sometimes blind us to the challenges people face, but failure humbles us. It reminds us of our shared humanity, of the fact that everyone carries burdens and battles unseen. This awareness makes us more compassionate leaders, friends, and partners. Without setbacks, our victories might make us arrogant, but setbacks ground us in humility. Another powerful teaching that setbacks provide is the lesson of adaptability. Life rarely unfolds exactly as we imagine it. Our plans may be precise, our goals clearly defined, but reality has its own course. A setback forces us to adjust, to reimagine, to pivot. This adaptability is one of the most essential skills for long-term growth. In fact, some of the greatest innovations in history emerged not from uninterrupted success, but from repeated failures that forced people to think differently. Setbacks expand our creativity by pushing us out of our comfort zones and into new ways of solving problems. We must also acknowledge that setbacks reveal our inner strength. We often underestimate how resilient we really are until life tests us. A loss, a rejection, a failure. These moments feel unbearable at first. Yet as time passes, we discover that we can endure more than we thought possible. The very experience we believed would break us becomes the one that strengthens us. Setbacks show us that we are not as fragile as we feared, but more powerful and capable than we imagined. To truly learn from setbacks, however, requires a posture of openness. If we close ourselves off in bitterness, we miss the lesson. If we hide in shame, we silence the wisdom setbacks want to give us. But when we approach each setback with curiosity instead of condemnation, we transform it into a classroom. We ask, what is this teaching me? How can I grow from this? What is the hidden gift in this difficulty? These questions do not erase the pain, but they give it purpose. Of course, it's not easy. In the moment, setbacks can feel like crushing weights. They test our patience and sometimes our faith. But it is often only in hindsight that we recognize their value. Think back to a time when you experienced a disappointment that felt unbearable. Now, from the distance of years, can you see how it shaped you? Can you see how it redirected your path? Or forced you to develop qualities you now rely on? That's the hidden work of setbacks. They shape us in ways we cannot always appreciate immediately. In the end, setbacks are part of the rhythm of growth. They are not interruptions to the journey, they are the journey. They remind us that success is not a straight line, but a winding path marked by trials and lessons. To see setbacks as teachers is to embrace life with wisdom, humility, and resilience. It is to understand that failure does not define us, it refines us. So when life brings a setback, resist the urge to view it as punishment. Instead, open yourself to the possibility that it carries a lesson you need. It might be a lesson about patience, about courage, about adaptability, or about compassion. Whatever the lesson, it will serve to make you wiser, stronger, and more prepared for the road ahead. Because setbacks, when we honor them as teachers, become the stepping stones to growth, transformation, and ultimately, a deeper understanding of who we are and what we are capable of becoming. We are often taught, either directly or subtly, that growth is about reaching perfection. From an early age, many of us equate success with getting everything right. Perfect grades, flawless performances, mistake-free lives. The pressure to avoid errors becomes immense, and in that pursuit, we begin to fear struggle, difficulty, and imperfection. Yet the truth is this: real growth does not come from perfection. It comes from the struggle. The difficult moments, the times when we stumble and wrestle with ourselves, are the soil in which resilience, wisdom, and character take root. Perfection, as enticing as it sounds, is an illusion. No one truly lives a perfect life. Behind every polished success story is a hidden history of struggle, nights of doubt, seasons of failure, and repeated attempts that did not go as planned. If we were to peel back the surface of anyone who appears to have made it, we would find countless moments where things went wrong. These struggles were not detours from growth, they were the very essence of it. Struggle is what refines us, stretches us, and prepares us to hold the weight of success. Think of how muscles grow. They do not strengthen through comfort or lack of resistance. Muscles grow because they are challenged, because they are pushed beyond their current capacity. The struggle, the tension, the soreness, the resistance, is precisely what leads to growth. The same is true of the human spirit. Without being tested by life's hardships, we remain soft, untested, and unaware of our true capacity. It is in the pressure of challenges, in the fires of struggle, that we discover what we are capable of enduring and becoming. Perfection, in contrast, does not teach us. If everything went smoothly, if every plan unfolded without obstacles, we would never have to confront our weaknesses. We would never know the depth of our resilience, nor the strength of our determination. Perfection lulls us into complacency, while struggle awakens us. The discomfort of difficulty forces us to adapt, to innovate, and to grow in ways that smooth paths never could. Consider how some of the most powerful life lessons come not from victories but from losses. When we succeed easily, we might celebrate, but the learning is shallow. When we struggle and fail, we are forced to reflect. We must ask ourselves what needs to change, what strengths we can develop, and what wisdom we can carry forward. That reflection becomes the foundation for real growth. The struggle, though painful, leaves us with deeper insight than perfection ever could. Struggle also teaches us patience. In a world that glorifies instant gratification, we often forget that meaningful growth takes time. The seed does not sprout overnight, nor does a tree reach maturity in a single season. Growth is gradual, and it often requires enduring long stretches of uncertainty, effort, and trial. Struggle reminds us that the most valuable things in life are worth waiting for and working through. It slows us down, forces us to stay present, and invites us to appreciate the process rather than just the outcome. Moreover, struggle shapes our character. It teaches humility, because in our moments of struggle, we realize we are not invincible. It teaches empathy, because when we suffer, we better understand the suffering of others. It teaches courage, because continuing forward in the face of difficulty requires bravery. If life were perfect, if everything came effortlessly, we would miss out on these qualities. It is struggle that forges us into deeper, wiser, more compassionate beings. Struggle also reveals our values. When we are tested, we come to see what truly matters to us. Perhaps we discover that our goals are worth fighting for, or perhaps we realize that what we were chasing was never meaningful in the first place. Struggle strips away the superficial and forces us to anchor ourselves in what is real and important. In this way, struggle clarifies our priorities, helping us live more authentically and purposefully. There is also an undeniable beauty in the stories that emerge from struggle. When people share their journeys, we are rarely inspired by tales of perfection. What moves us are the stories of resilience, perseverance, and triumph over difficulty. We are drawn to those who fought through struggles because their journeys reflect the universal truth that life is hard, and yet growth is possible. These stories remind us that struggle is not something to hide or be ashamed of, but something that connects us to others and demonstrates the depth of human strength. Struggle is also where innovation happens. When faced with obstacles, We are forced to think differently, to step outside our comfort zones, and to find creative solutions. Many breakthroughs in art, science, and technology were born out of necessity and challenge. The struggle pushed people beyond conventional thinking and into new realms of possibility. If life were perfect and easy, the motivation to innovate would vanish. It is difficulty that sparks creativity. In addition, struggle builds resilience, the capacity to endure hardship and continue forward. Resilience is not developed in times of ease. It is cultivated in the midst of obstacles. Every time we face a struggle and survive, we add to our resilience. We build an internal strength that allows us to face future challenges with greater confidence. Without struggle, this resilience would remain dormant, untested, and underdeveloped. It is also important to remember that struggle is not a sign of weakness or failure. Too often, people assume that if they are struggling, they must be doing something wrong. But struggle is not a mistake. It is a natural and necessary part of growth. Struggling does not mean you are failing. It means you are in the process of becoming. It means you are stretching yourself beyond what you already know. And that stretching is exactly what creates transformation. We can even find evidence of this in nature. Look at how a butterfly emerges from a cocoon. The struggle to push through the cocoon is what strengthens its wings, preparing it for flight. If someone were to intervene and make that process easy, the butterfly would emerge too weak to fly. Its struggle is its preparation. The same principle applies to us. Our struggles are not cruel punishments. They are the very process by which we gain the strength to rise higher. In our lives, then, we must learn to embrace struggle instead of avoiding it. This doesn't mean seeking out hardship unnecessarily, but rather, when struggle comes, not shrinking back from it. Instead of asking, "How do I escape this?" we can ask, "What is this teaching me?" That question shifts the entire experience. Struggle ceases to be a burden and becomes a teacher, guiding us toward the growth we need. In truth, perfection is sterile. It leaves no room for learning, for humanity, or for transformation. Struggle, on the other hand, is alive with possibility. It is messy, painful, and difficult, but it is also the place where growth happens. It is the soil in which resilience, wisdom, courage, and empathy are planted. When we accept that growth happens in the struggle, not in perfection, we liberate ourselves from the impossible pursuit of flawlessness and open ourselves to the rich and transformative process of becoming. So when you find yourself in the middle of struggle, when things are not going as planned, when you feel tired, when the weight feels heavy, remember that you are not failing. You are growing. The very struggle you want to avoid, courage, is a word we often associate with strength, bravery, and fearlessness. Yet, when we look closer, real courage is not about never falling, never failing, or never stumbling. True courage is found in the act of rising after we fall. It is in the decision to stand up again, even when failure has left us broken, embarrassed, or discouraged. Courage is not defined by avoiding failure, but by what we choose to do after failure has touched us. Failure is a universal experience. No matter how talented, disciplined, or careful we are, there will be times when our efforts fall short. Some failures will be small and private, while others may be large and painfully public. When failure strikes, our natural instinct is often to retreat, to protect ourselves from further pain, to avoid the vulnerability that comes with trying again. This is where courage enters the picture. It is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite fear. It is not the denial of failure, but the willingness to rise in the presence of it. To rise after failure is not an easy task. It requires us to face the sting of disappointment and the heaviness of self-doubt. It forces us to confront the voices in our heads that whisper, "You're not good enough," or "You'll never succeed." Courage is the act of refusing to let those voices define us. It is standing up in defiance of defeat and saying, This is not the end of my story. The willingness to rise is the moment we take back our power from failure. When we avoid failure at all costs, we also avoid growth. Avoidance keeps us in a small, safe corner of life where risks are minimized and challenges are sidestepped. But in that safety, we also sidestep the possibility of greatness. Some of the most transformative moments in life come from stepping into arenas where failure is possible. And when failure does occur, it becomes a crucible that tests our resilience. Rising after those moments not only rebuilds our confidence, but expands our capacity for future challenges. Think about the people who inspire us most. They are rarely those who lived flawless lives. More often, they are people who endured defeats, setbacks, and losses, but chose to rise anyway. Their courage lies not in a perfect record, but in their refusal to let failure have the last word. They show us that the measure of strength is not in how few times we fall, but in how many times we stand back up. Rising after failure requires vulnerability. It means allowing ourselves to be seen trying again, even though others may remember our stumble. Vulnerability feels uncomfortable, but it is the birthplace of courage. By daring to rise, we demonstrate that our worth is not tied to one failure, but to our willingness to keep moving forward. Courage and vulnerability are intertwined. One cannot exist without the other. It's also important to remember that rising after failure does not always mean immediately succeeding. Sometimes rising simply means choosing to show up again, even if success feels distant. It may mean trying again with shaky hands and a fearful heart. Each time we rise, we build inner strength, and each time we take another step, we prove to ourselves that failure is not final. Rising is not about erasing the fall, it's about refusing to stay down. Failure has the power to define us in two ways. It can either be the end of our efforts, or it can become the foundation of our resilience. The choice lies in our response. When we see failure as proof that we are incapable, we give it the final word. But when we see failure as evidence that we dared, that we stretched ourselves beyond comfort, we reclaim its meaning. We can then use it as a stepping stone, not a tombstone. Courage in the face of failure also cultivates empathy. When we have experienced the sting of falling short, we develop a deeper compassion for others who are struggling. Rising after failure softens us, teaching us to see not only our own humanity, but also the humanity of those around us. Our scars become reminders that everyone stumbles, and in sharing those stories, we create connections that inspire and heal. In rising, we also discover strengths we didn't know we had. Failure strips away the illusion of control and exposes our vulnerabilities. Yet, when we choose to rise, we often find hidden reserves of resilience, creativity, and determination. These qualities remain dormant when life is easy, but failure awakens them. Each time we rise, we grow stronger, not because the failure disappeared, but because we discovered we could endure it and move forward. Courage is also about perspective. Failure is not a full stop, it is a comma in the sentence of our lives. When we see failure as final, we close the door to possibility. But when we rise, we open ourselves to the truth that life is a series of attempts, lessons, and evolutions. The courage to rise reminds us that our worth is not measured by one moment of defeat, but by the totality of our journey. One of the most powerful aspects of rising after failure is the way it redefines success. Instead of seeing success as the absence of failure, we begin to see success as the persistence to continue despite failure. The true victory is not in never falling, but in becoming someone who cannot be kept down. This redefinition liberates us from the impossible standard of perfection and anchors us in the strength of resilience. Of course, rising takes time. Sometimes the wounds of failure cut deep, and healing is necessary before we can stand again. Courage does not demand immediate action, but it does require that we eventually choose to get back up. Even if we rise slowly, even if we rise imperfectly, the act of rising is itself a triumph. Each rise is a declaration that failure cannot hold us captive. The truth is, failure will always be part of life. But so will courage. And every time we rise, we remind ourselves of who we are: people capable of enduring, people capable of growing, people capable of trying again. Failure may knock us down, but courage ensures we do not stay there. Resilience is often spoken of as the ability to bounce back from difficulty, to recover quickly from setbacks, and to endure hardship without breaking. While this definition captures part of the truth, resilience is not just about survival. It is about how we choose to interpret and respond to the events in our lives. At its core, resilience is about reframing challenges as opportunities, taking what was meant to weaken us and using it as fuel to grow stronger, wiser, and more capable. The difference between those who crumble under pressure and those who rise often lies not in their circumstances, but in the lens through which they view those circumstances. When a challenge appears in our path, our first instinct may be resistance. We label it as unfair, unnecessary, or insurmountable. We ask, why me? And why now? This natural reaction frames the challenge as an obstacle, something standing between us and the life we want. Yet, what if instead of seeing it only as a roadblock, we asked a different question? What can this teach me? What opportunity is hidden inside this difficulty? This shift in perspective does not erase the pain or difficulty of the challenge, but it transforms how we engage with it. The problem remains, but our relationship with it changes, and in that change lies resilience. Every setback carries within it the seed of potential growth. When we fail at something we deeply care about, it is easy to interpret the failure as evidence that we are not capable, that we should not try again. But if we reframe the situation, failure becomes an invitation to refine our skills, to deepen our commitment, or to take a different path that might ultimately serve us better. Resilient people are not those who avoid failure, but those who choose to extract lessons from it. They look at the ashes of disappointment and find sparks of wisdom. The act of reframing challenges requires both humility and imagination. Humility allows us to accept that we do not control everything, that life will bring difficulties no matter how carefully we plan. Imagination allows us to see beyond the present struggle and envision a future where this challenge plays a role in shaping who we become. Together, humility and imagination give us the ability to hold the challenge in a new light. We no longer see it as something purely destructive, but as something that has the potential to build us into stronger versions of ourselves. Consider the example of rejection. To most, rejection feels like failure, a painful reminder of our inadequacy. But those who cultivate resilience through reframing see rejection as redirection. Instead of dwelling on the closed door, they ask, what new direction is this pushing me toward? Or, what lesson am I meant to learn from this experience? This does not make rejection pleasant, but it does give it meaning. Meaning is what transforms pain into progress. Another powerful aspect of reframing is recognizing that challenges can reveal strengths we didn't know we had. When life is comfortable, many of our inner resources remain dormant. But when adversity strikes, we are forced to dig deeper, to stretch further, and to call on reserves of patience, creativity, and endurance we never realized were there. Reframing the challenge as an opportunity allows us to view hardship as a mirror, reflecting back the strengths and resilience we carry inside. Over time, these discoveries build confidence, not because life gets easier, but because we become more capable of handling its difficulties. Resilience also grows when we see challenges as opportunities to connect more deeply with others. Struggle has a way of stripping away superficial layers and revealing what truly matters. In our hardest moments, we often find unexpected allies, support, and solidarity. By reframing challenges as opportunities, we recognize that difficulty can deepen relationships, inspire compassion, and remind us that we are not alone. pain shared becomes lighter, and resilience becomes not only an individual strength, but a collective one. One of the most profound shifts in perspective comes when we begin to see challenges as invitations to align more closely with our values. A setback at work may push us to reconsider whether we are truly pursuing a career that fulfills us. A broken relationship may lead us to reflect on what kind of love and connection we truly desire. A financial difficulty may challenge us to reassess what we value most in life. When reframed, challenges become opportunities for self-discovery and realignment, helping us live with greater authenticity. It is important to acknowledge that reframing challenges does not mean denying the pain or pretending everything is fine. Toxic positivity ignores the reality of suffering, but resilience honors it while refusing to be defined by it. The key lies in allowing ourselves to feel the weight of the challenge while also searching for meaning within it. Resilience is not built by bypassing pain, but by integrating it into a larger story of growth. In many ways, reframing challenges is an act of courage. It requires us to confront discomfort, uncertainty, and loss without succumbing to despair. It means looking squarely at life's difficulties and saying, "This will not destroy me. I will find a way to grow from this." It is an intentional choice to stand in the storm and believe that something valuable can emerge from it. Over time, this choice builds a kind of mental and emotional toughness that cannot be shaken easily. The stories we tell ourselves about our challenges shape the trajectory of our lives. If we tell ourselves we are victims of circumstance, we close the door to resilience. But if we tell ourselves that every challenge carries within it an opportunity to grow, then resilience becomes possible. The story we choose determines the meaning we extract. The meaning we extract determines the strength we gain. When we practice reframing regularly, resilience becomes not just a response to occasional hardship, but a way of living. We begin to approach life with curiosity rather than fear, asking, "What will I learn from this?" rather than, "Why is this happening to me?" This mindset transforms even the most daunting struggles into stepping stones. It allows us to face life with a quiet confidence, knowing that whatever comes, we have the ability to shape it into something meaningful. Ultimately, resilience is not about avoiding storms, but about learning to dance in the rain. It is about refusing to let life's difficulties harden us into bitterness, and instead allowing them to shape us into people of depth, strength, and wisdom. When we reframe challenges as opportunities, we choose growth over defeat, purpose over despair, and hope over resignation. This choice, repeated again and again, builds a resilience that carries us not just through individual struggles, but through the whole journey of life. When setbacks arrive, one of the first places we often go is self-criticism. We replay the mistake in our minds, dissecting every detail, telling ourselves that we should have known better, that we should have been smarter, stronger, or more prepared. It's easy to become our own harshest judge, believing that punishment will somehow motivate us to do better next time. But the truth is, criticism rarely fuels growth. It usually deepens shame and paralysis. Real growth after setbacks comes not from tearing ourselves apart, but from meeting ourselves with compassion. Self-compassion is not about excusing mistakes or pretending failure didn't happen. It is about choosing to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we would offer a friend who is struggling. Self-compassion in the face of setbacks is an act of courage because it goes against so many cultural messages we have absorbed. We are often taught that being tough on ourselves is the only way to succeed, that softness equates to weakness, and that forgiving ourselves means lowering our standards. Yet research and lived experience show the opposite. When we extend compassion to ourselves, we create the emotional safety needed to examine our mistakes honestly. Instead of being consumed by guilt or fear, we create the space to learn from what happened. Compassion opens the door to growth by reminding us that failure is part of being human, not proof that we are unworthy. Think of someone you admire, perhaps a mentor, a leader, or even a close friend, who once shared their story of failure with you. Chances are, what made their story powerful was not that they never stumbled, but that they were able to face their shortcomings with honesty, grace, and resilience. That ability stems from self-compassion. By refusing to let failure define their worth, they created room for growth. Self-compassion turns the sharp edges of failure into stepping stones, offering us the stability we need to move forward. There is also an important psychological shift that happens when we practice self-compassion. Instead of identifying entirely with the failure, "I am a failure," we begin to see failure as an event. "I experienced a failure." That difference matters. When we define ourselves by one mistake, we trap ourselves in shame. But when we acknowledge failure as a single moment within a larger story, we can learn without losing our sense of self-worth. Self-compassion allows us to separate our identity from our performance, which is crucial if we want to grow. Compassion also gives us resilience. Life is not about avoiding mistakes, but about continuing forward despite them. If every setback becomes an indictment of our character, we will hesitate to try again. But if we approach ourselves with understanding, we give ourselves permission to keep going. It's like tending to a bruised part of the body. If we beat it up further, it won't heal. But if we care for it gently, it recovers faster and grows stronger. The same is true of the heart and mind after failure. Self-compassion doesn't mean lowering our ambitions or ignoring accountability. It actually strengthens accountability because it encourages us to take responsibility without drowning in shame. When we can admit, "Yes, I made a mistake, but I am still worthy of love and capable of growth," we are more likely to reflect honestly, make amends if necessary, and try again with renewed clarity. Harsh self-criticism often leads to avoidance. Self-compassion leads to responsibility and growth. One of the biggest gifts of self-compassion is that it connects us to others. When we soften toward ourselves, we naturally become more understanding of the struggles of those around us. Instead of judging others for their setbacks, we recognize the shared humanity of imperfection. This builds empathy and fosters deeper relationships, reminding us that setbacks are not something to hide in shame, but experiences we all encounter. Compassion transforms failure from an isolating experience into a bridge of connection. The practice of self-compassion can take many forms. It might mean pausing after a setback to acknowledge the pain you feel instead of rushing past it. It could look like speaking kindly to yourself instead of repeating words of blame. It may even mean allowing yourself to rest before trying again, honoring your limits instead of pushing through with resentment. Each of these acts sends the message, "I am worthy of care, even when I fall short." That message is transformative. Over time, self-compassion reshapes our relationship with setbacks. Instead of fearing them, we see them as natural parts of learning. Instead of dreading mistakes, we welcome them as opportunities to refine our path. Compassion doesn't take away the sting of disappointment, but it ensures the sting does not define us. It teaches us to hold both the pain of failure and the hope of growth in the same hand. Ultimately, self-compassion is the soil in which resilience and wisdom grow. Without it, setbacks harden into shame, but with it, setbacks soften into lessons. Compassion allows us to keep moving forward with courage, knowing that our worth is not at stake every time we stumble. It reminds us that we are works in progress, and that growth often requires falling, forgiving, and trying again.